again, YouTube. It's time for a new show here on Polygeekism. I present to you BS Report. What is that supposed to mean? Fake news? No, not really, but kind of. Here's the deal. Anybody who spends 5 minutes or more on Facebook knows people are going to share just about anything. Many times, it confirms their worldview, or it's just something they think's kind of cool and they share it just without thinking. This is a bad thing. Many of the things people share are severely misrepresented or completely fabricated to push a narrative. Quite frankly, it irritates me, but I think we can all do better. However, until you learn on your own, I'm here to call you out on your BS. Let's start first with this picture of Susan B. Anthony on the wrong end of a police beating trying to vote in 1872. At face value, sounds like the perfect example of the struggles women had trying to get the right to vote in the late 1800s. Anthony was one of the people who led the women's suffrage movement and was a great fighter for equal rights in America. This is perfect to show how you feel about women's rights, except it isn't. Now slow down. I'm not trying to say the movement was a bad thing or that women's rights is a bad thing. Of course, I'm for women's rights. That's not what this is about. But what I am saying is that picture is not Susan B. Anthony. I did a little bit of digging because the first time I saw this picture, I was like, man, isn't that just too perfect? And it is. The picture is actually of Ada Wright. She was a British suffragette, and this is a picture of her being taken down by London police in 1910. This was an event called Black Friday, and no, they weren't running out to try and buy shit, where several hundred men and women protested against the British Prime Minister, who dismissed the opportunity to vote on a bill that would have allowed roughly 1 million British and Irish women to vote. 119 people were arrested and at least one woman died due to the injuries inflicted upon her by the police. Also, just to point out, this was 8 years after Anthony had died. Whatever the original message was, it gets lost when somebody finds out that it's not actually the picture of what it says it is. And they kind of become deaf to the situation in general. Look at them silly liberals making up facts. I knew they were the ones with all the fake news. We know it happens on both sides. And this next one surrounding one of the biggest fact fabricators of the 21st century, George W. Bush. Now, you've probably seen this story in a couple different places, but the main picture is of George Bush dancing with an amputee woman who's actually a veteran, and it talks about how he invites veterans out to his ranch every weekend, every other weekend, 10 times a year, whatever, to come hang out and ride bikes and do all sorts of fun stuff. I mean, that's a great gesture, right? Whether it's 10 times a year or 25 times a year, whatever, that's still a good thing, right? And especially because it's something old Bummer would have never done. Again, parts of the story are true and others just plain aren't. There is an event that he hosts at his ranch every year called W100K. The following is a description directly from that website. Servicemen and women wounded in the global war on terror join President George W. Bush for a 100-kilometer mountain bike ride. For wounded warriors from America's military, spending a weekend riding mountain bikes in the Warrior 100K will offer an opportunity to meet other veterans, share meals, share life stories, as well as ride and cross the finish line with their former commander-in-chief. Again, this is a cool thing that our former president puts together to support wounded warriors, so why not talk about it? Let's talk about it. But why go on to claim it happens 10 times a year or every other weekend? Why can't we just say he does it once a year for X number of veterans? Why go that extra step? Because now you go that extra step, you claim it happens all the time, and I really know that you're just trying to say it because you're trying to say your side is right. This last one, again, I'm going to put up the text so you can kind of read along as I read it for you. It's a little long to begin with, but we'll unpack it pretty quickly. This is a true story from the Houston Herald. Last Thursday night, round midnight, a woman in Houston, Texas was arrested, jailed, and charged with manslaughter for shooting a man 6 times in the back as he was running away with her purse. The following Monday morning, the woman was called in front of the arraignment judge, sworn in, and asked to explain her actions. The woman replied, "I was standing at the corner bus stop for about 15 minutes, waiting for the bus to take me home after work. I was a waitress at a local cafe. I was there alone, so I had my right hand on my pistol that was in my purse, that was hung over my left shoulder. All of a sudden, I was being spun around hard to my left. As I caught my balance, I saw a man running away from me with my purse. I looked down at my right hand, and I saw that my fingers were wrapped tightly around my pistol. The next thing I remember is saying out loud, "No way, punk! You're not stealing my paycheck and tips!" I raised my right hand, pointed my pistol at the man running away from me with my purse, and squeezed the trigger of my pistol 6 times. When asked by the arraignment judge, "Why did you shoot the man 6 times?" the woman replied under oath, "Because when I pulled the trigger of my pistol the 7th time, it only went click." The woman was acquitted of all charges, and she was back at work at the cafe the next day. This is why everybody should have a gun, right? Self-defense. You got to defend yourself. Now, this seems like a well-presented argument. There's a very detailed story. There's a picture of the woman. It even comes from the Houston Herald. I mean, look at her. She's a pretty good-looking woman, and we don't want our women getting attacked on the streets. So, yeah, why don't we just let everybody have guns? Unfortunately, what's written here is pretty far from the truth. So let's start with the first thing. It's a true story. Most of us have probably heard a friend that starts with, "You got to believe me, oh man, it's a true story." And they tell their story. Sometimes you were there and you know some of that didn't happen, or you know that fish was actually just a fish. But when somebody has to tell you up front that something's true, that's a red flag. Your friend that, true story, had 35 beers last night, is not hungover, is also your friend that you know passes out after 1 round of beer pong. Apply the same kind of logic to this. This is the next one that's kind of interesting. The Houston Herald is not a newspaper in Texas. It is a real newspaper in Texas County, Missouri, and they have never run a story like this. I mean, it still could be true, right? Yeah, it just got passed along. Somebody threw a newspaper. No. I'm going to tell you now, the whole story is completely false. Well, except somebody did get shot in the back. This picture wasn't added to this story until more recent years, because it's apparently one of those ones that went around in emails for, a decade before it showed up on Facebook. But the picture is of a woman named Tracy Grissom. And if you want to read her story, just do a Google search. I'll kind of break it down here too. This is her mugshot. Well, yeah, of course, she was arrested, she was arraigned. No, this is a mugshot from when she shot and killed her ex-husband. Not in self-defense. She went to his workplace to dispute something about their divorce, and then proceeded to shoot him 4 times, at least twice in the back while he was on the dock. She has lost her appeal and is serving a 25-year sentence. Now, why does this matter? What if you shared this story and one of your friends that's on the fence about the gun thing is like, "Look guys, this is a perfect example of why people should have guns." And they vote next time the other way because they think this is a real story that happened. Now, I'm not going to try and sit here and tell you what side of the fence is the right side of the fence to be on when we're talking about guns. But when you make your decision about something like that, wouldn't you want it to be on real information? You don't want to buy, some fat loss pills unless they work, right? Well, no, I guess a lot of people do that too. But you get what I'm saying. When you share something, either somebody's trying to convince you of something, they're trying to get you to buy something, or they think you're just really not going to check because a lot of people don't. So for starters, let's just make sure we check something before we send it off to the internet, right? Do the minimal, just throw it into Google and see what Google says. See if it's true or not. If you still think it's true, fire away, send it. If you've got questions, maybe you should just hold. But even if you all stop right now, I've still got plenty more of these to go around. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you do find one on your newsfeed that you think I should look at, send it my way. Maybe I'll feature it in a future episode. Again, thank you for watching. Hit that like button, hit subscribe. But until next time, have a blast.